Why don't you go and climb on the statue like the other kids?
I don't want to.
Why? I thought you were one of the great climbers of the Western world.
I only get to see you once a week.
I can't help that.
Yes, you can. You're my father. Why do I only see you once a week? Guess it's not only Mom you don't love.
Stop it.
I guess you don't love me.
I do love you, Johnny.
Then why can't I live with you? I want to go home. Mom says I'm not supposed to cry in the park.
All right, Johnny. You can live with me.
When?
Now. Let's go home.
Really?
Really.
Oh, boy!
One, two. 11:30, that's your mother?
Should I hide?
No, there's no need for a man to hide, Johnny. Maybe just go and take your bath.
I bet she's angry. You better say I'm asleep.
Where is he?
Good evening, Belle.
How dare you? He was supposed to be home by 7 o'clock.
Now.
Where is he?
He's all right.
How do I know that? His nurse was hysterical when he didn't come back.
It took a long time to get here. It's 11:30.
I have a performance to give, Mike. The play breaks at 10 after. You know that perfectly well.
Why didn't you miss just one performance, Belle? You have an understudy, but our son's not that important, is he? Imagine you're using all that passion without a paying audience. I'm flattered.
Where is he, Mike?
He's taking a bath.
Johnny, put your clothes on, darling. We're going home now.
Okay.
Mike, if you do this again, I'm going to call the police.
Don't be a fool, Belle. We have no formal agreement.
We have an agreement.
I'm his father.
Maybe you'd like to go to court about it.
Maybe I would.
I could destroy you in court, Mike.
Could you, Belle?
You know perfectly well I could.
Maybe I could find out that way.
What?
Whether you really hate me and how much.
Oh, Mike. Mike, you can't be that destructive. You just can't. You wouldn't use him against me. He's only 9 years old.
Do you have any other suggestions? I'm lousy at jigsaw puzzles.
Do you know how much that would hurt him?
Belle, you were always so marvelous at defending yourself by attacking. I mustn't fight for him in court because that'd injure him. All right. How much time are you willing to give me with him?
None. Not after tonight.
I imagined you'd say that. You see, I wonder whether you want him because you love him or because you don't want me to have him.
I don't have to answer that, Mike. I'm taking him home now. And please don't hurt yourself.
He's my son.
He belongs with me. Whether you like it or not, or whether he likes it or not. Johnny.
I want to stay with you.
He doesn't know what he wants, Mike. Now, Johnny, darling, we're going to go home now.
I hate the way your makeup smells.
I can't let him have Johnny, and I won't. And I don't want to make any arrangements, not for 6 months of the year or 3 months or Christmas. I'm just outraged that my husband would dare to ask for custody when we were separated.
Oh, when was that?
Well, that was 6 months ago. It was understood, it was clearly understood that Johnny would be mine.
Mrs. Remington, the court is almost always on the side of the mother in a custody case. The fact that you work, that you're a well-known actress, won't change that. But you haven't gotten a divorce and you're not seeking one. Now, could you explain to me why you want to restrict the boy's visits to his father so drastically?
Well, it seems as though Johnny is always upset when he's with his father. But his father loves him, and he loves his father.
The custody case is very ugly and painful to everyone involved. Let me put it to you bluntly. You want to keep the child from seeing his father as much as you can, am I right?
Yes.
And he wants to have the child entirely under his supervision.
Yes.
Then he'll come into court to blacken your character in any way he can. And your purpose will be roughly the same, to blacken his. And if he wants custody of Johnny, complete custody, then he's got to make you out to be an unfit mother, morally unfit. Now let's start with that. What can he accuse you of?
I don't know.
Is there another man in your life?
No.
Other men?
Of course not.
Mrs. Remington, we're not accusing you.
But we must have some idea of why your husband thinks he can win a custody suit. After all, he has an attorney advising him, too. And unless his lawyer is stupid...
He has a very good lawyer. It's Lester Swan. He used to represent both of us. But now I had to find another attorney. And you were very highly recommended to me, Mr. Preston, by the producer of my show. My husband's a very brilliant man. He's with one of the finest brokerage houses in New York. And he's had legal training himself.
I see.
Mike will probably accuse me of being with all sorts of men. And Lester won't know whether he's telling him the truth or not. And Mike doesn't know himself sometimes. I mean, he's always been preposterously jealous.
Could a case be made out that his jealousy was pathological?
No. I mean, well, I don't know. He comes from such a different world. He never understood the theater or theater people. If I kiss a man with any feeling on stage, Mike was always sure that it was more than acting, and that I would be doing the same thing off stage. That's why I can't tell you what he might accuse me of. He might accuse me of anything.
But there's no name he can mention that might embarrass you.
No.
Good. Maybe we can work out something in the nature of a compromise.
No, Mr. Preston. I want my son with me all the time. That won't change, and I won't compromise.
Well, we'll be in touch with you, Mrs. Remington.
I may be an actress, but I'm a very good mother. I want you both to know that. Goodbye.
Bye.
Goodbye. You know, my feeling is she probably is a good mother.
Really? Why?
Oh, I don't know. I like her.
Maybe she's just a good actress, Ken.
Isn't that being a little rough on her?
Maybe. But she's not being very reasonable.
Oh, we don't know.
What makes you say that?
Because we don't know. Why is she so dead set against the boy seeing the father at all? Maybe she has reasons, Dad.
Well, you'll admit she's being a little drastic, won't you? After all, you'd think she'd let him visit the boy on his birthday for half an hour. There's something very peculiar about her. I'd like to know what it is.
Well, she's a marvelous-looking woman.
Yes, but she's a little too young for me and a little too old for you, wouldn't you say?
Don't underestimate yourself, Dad.
And don't you overestimate yourself. Tell you what I think, Ken. You ought to pay her a visit. Drop by and meet the boy, see what her home is like. I don't think she could object to that. And I'm sure you won't.
No.
Now, you know he was drunk. I don't know how you can play with him. Thank heavens I only have that one scene with him. Last night I had to ad-lib most of his lines as well as my own.
Right there.
Well, after all, dear, you are the star. You could get rid of him. Ouch! Do you really think I'm going to talk to the producer?
There is a Mr. Preston to see you, Mrs. Remington.
Who? Oh, yes. All right. That'll be all for today, Margaret. Thank you. Would you please ask him to come in?
My dear, who is he?
He is a lawyer.
Oh, some of my best lawyers are friends.
Oh, it's a little too early in the morning to be clever, Bibby.
How is Mike lately?
This has nothing to do with Mike.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right. Don't apologize. I understand. Mr. Preston, this is my friend, Bibby Porter. I mean, if you've seen my play, you might remember her.
It's nice to meet you.
Oh, thank you. Well, Belle, dear, we're waiting patiently for the Punch and Judy show to start.
Don't you think it's time for your appointment, Bibby?
All right, I'll be good. Just get my bag and gloves and I'll be going along. The horrible rundown on your husband, if that's what this is really too sordid for me delicate little ears.
There is no horrible rundown on Mike, Bibby. You know that very well. It's just that he's behaving rather foolishly.
Of course. I'm charmed to have met you, Mr. Preston. Bye, dear.
I feel terrible about barging in on you like this, Miss Remington.
Oh, not at all. I'll be out in a minute.
You know, maybe just as well I came. I mean, if there is a horrible rundown on your husband, you know, that's exactly what we need.
Mr. Preston. Bibby can find scandal in the fact that people get married. Now, when they get divorced, or when they're separated, she's certain that something positively depraved has happened. Well, it hasn't. I'm sorry I can't tell you that my husband's a monster, because he isn't. Now, what you really want is to see my son, isn't it?
That's right.
To see that I don't beat him and that he's well-fed. Well, you know, he's very bright, and he'll be suspicious.
Well, I'll be careful.
I'm going to take him to the park in a little while. We'll be near the 72nd Street entrance. And if you just happen by, why, you can talk to him there. He'll be relaxed.
Well, I have a date in half an hour.
With your girl?
Yes.
Well, why don't you bring her along?
All right. I'll give it a try. Half an hour?
Fine. Mr. Preston? You don't have any children of your own, do you?
No.
Well, you won't last long as a bachelor. You know, I think my Johnny will like you. You're a little like his father. Or like his father used to be.
Hi, Johnny.
Hello. Who are you?
My name's Kenneth Preston. I'm a friend of your mother's.
Who's she?
Her name's Joni. What are you doing up here?
Nothing.
Sometimes it's nice to be alone.
Women are pretty ignorant, aren't they?
Well, they have their uses.
Like what?
Lots of things. For instance, you pretty much have to be a girl to be somebody's sister.
Who wants a sister?
True. Well, girls do make the best mothers, though. I think you've got to go along with me on that.
I suppose. Do you know my mother doesn't even know how to cook or sew things? She can't even ride a bike.
She's a lovely actress, though, Johnny.
I don't care about that. She's not such a lovely mother. Boy, my father lets me drink his coffee, and she has a fit. I even tasted his beer once. My mother doesn't like me going to movies where guys get slugged or shot or cut up.
You're right. Women are ignorant.
Well, you're okay, I guess.
Thank you.
How long does it take you to put on your face?
To put on my... Well, a minute or two.
Takes my mother about 10 hours.
Well, Johnny, actresses have to look their best wherever they go.
Is this talking something about my mother and father?
Well, in a way, yes.
I don't care. Who do you like better, your father or your mother?
I love them both, Johnny.
Do you? Do you like your father
Sure I do.
better than your mother?
Well, I love them both. Don't you?
I'd rather live with my father. I don't even care about him locking himself in his room.
I'm not sure I know what you mean, Johnny.
Well, it was because my mother said he had terrible headaches. I guess like bullets in your head. Only it really hurt him. Sometimes he even had to cry. Because my mother said the pain that he had in his head was worse than when the doctor puts a needle in you.
Johnny, why do you think your father has headaches like that?
I don't know. Guess he's just like me. Guess he's just not lucky. I had 4 stitches once when I fell off my bike. Both of us, we get in trouble. He cut himself once with a razor, right on the wrist. It was an accident, only there was blood all over the place.
Ken, you can't go out on your own and violate the wishes of your client. If Mrs. Remington asks you to stay out of her husband's life, then stay out of it.
Even if we lose the case?
We're not going to lose the case. She's going to retain custody of the child.
Well, in her terms, we've lost the case if the judge awards Johnny to his father for 1 week out of the year.
Well, I think that's wrong. The father should be allowed to visit the child.
Well, now, who's violating the wishes of his client?
Ken, the woman's being unreasonable.
Well, Dad, maybe she isn't. Maybe she has reasons.
Then what are they?
That's what I'm trying to find out. In the first place, I think he's suicidal.
No. What have you got to go on? Some nonsense you heard from a 9-year-old who's been brought up on gangsters and Indians.
Well, he's a pretty perceptive kid, and I get the same message from her. No, there's something about her husband that is so far out that she won't talk about it. I think she's trying to protect him even though she can't stand him. Pretty marvelous woman.
Is she? How many times have you seen her?
3 or 4.
Well, that's doing your homework pretty thoroughly, isn't it?
You don't understand theater people.
Neither, apparently, does her husband.
Well, maybe Belle is a little high-strung.
Belle?
Well, she doesn't think it's so unusual, and I call her Belle.
That's showbiz. Let me ask you, Ken, how do you want this case to come out?
Well, Dad, from what I've seen, I think Belle ought to have the child full time.
Now you're behaving more like a judge than a lawyer.
Well, I was about to say the same thing to you, you know.
Well, you may be right.
Look, Dad, let me find out what I can about Mike Remington, and then we can decide, you know, whether to use it or not.
Well, all right, for the time being, I won't disapprove.
Good.
Give my regards to Belle.
Well, of course, my dear, I'm absolutely enchanted that you should think of calling on me. Hello, my darling. Hello, hello there. Hello, sweetie. Hello. Yes, hello. But you know, I never gossip, never. And Belle above all, is sacred. And when you telephoned, well, I really thought you wanted to have tea with me. I mean, because of me. A little brandy, dear?
No, thank you.
Well, I was talking to the birds. It perks them up, you know. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. I will say this about Belle, though. She tried. She tried her very best. Of course, she wouldn't give up her career, and I did tell her that that was the only way. The only way she could make things go with Mike. Oh, these Wall Street men, really. I was with them one night when a crowd of autograph hounds absolutely surrounded Belle, and Mike got so mad that he hit one of them, the most aggressive one. There was a terrible scene.
Well, what about his crying?
His crying? Oh, then you know about that.
And his locking himself in his room?
Well, I really hate gossip, but you are trying to help Belle, aren't you?
Yes.
Well, darling, the terrifying thing about that was she never knew what he might do.
Do?
To himself. Oh, Mike has the most terrible fits of depression, you know. If I believed in doctors, that kind of doctor, I'd say he should have seen one. For one thing, he was always absurdly jealous. Several times when he and Belle had their quarrels, he'd actually strike her. Well, of course, she couldn't hide it, the poor dear. And in her last play, I know for a fact She went on for more than a week with a black eye. Now, you can hide that on stage with makeup, but not off. And, of course, Mike very nearly did kill himself once. Took a whole bottle of sleeping pills and slashed his wrist for good measure.
And Johnny saw the blood?
Yes. Bill had to have the door taken off. He locked the bathroom door. Of course, they hushed it up because if a thing like that got out, it could ruin Mike and Wall Street. You know, darling, people think that only theater people do things like that. Well, if you try anything like that in the theater, immediately you're offered all sorts of jobs. But you try anything like that in Wall Street, and immediately everybody sells everything, and you are kaput. But you can see why she couldn't go on living with him. Have I said anything I shouldn't?
Not at all. Not at all.
You don't have to tell me anything at all. This visit is a little irregular anyway.
Why don't you talk to my attorney?
I have. I thought the two of us could try and clear the air. He's given me permission to talk to you.
I've got about 5 minutes.
Mr. Remington, do you love your wife?
That's none of your business.
It's perfectly possible to love someone and still not be able to live with them. I can understand that.
Look, Mr. Preston.
Let me ask you this. Do you love your son?
I thought you lawyers weren't allowed to ask leading questions.
All right, then. How do you feel about your son?
I love him.
So does your wife.
Does she?
I think so. You're both hurting him a great deal.
The 5 minutes are up.
Look, he's floundering around in the middle of a war he doesn't understand. Now, couldn't the two of you get together and talk about it?
No.
You might save him a great deal of unhappiness.
I said no.
If you make him testify in court, it's something he won't forget for the rest of his life.
I want him.
Do you?
Get out, Mr. Preston.
The other day he said he was like you, unlucky. What did he mean by that?
I don't know.
Please don't force him to go into a courtroom. The judge is almost certain to ask him who he'd prefer to live with, you or his mother. Now, how would you like to be 9 years old and be put in a position like that?
You listen to me. The only thing I have left on earth is that boy. But I mean the only thing. I need him. Do you understand that? I need him.
And if you get him, then everything will be just fine.
Yes.
How dare you make a child responsible for your happiness? You're supposed to be responsible for his.
I told you to get out of here.
I hope you'll think about it, Mr. Remington.
I don't know why I volunteered to cook dinner for you. You're in such a rotten mood, I could have stayed home and read the obituaries.
I am not in a rotten mood.
Prove it.
There.
I'd call that semi-rotten. What is it, Ken?
Oh, it's his custody case. I think Belle Remington's behaving like a fool.
You're behaving rather strangely yourself.
What do you mean by that? Oh, Joni, I can't open it.
You're behaving like a jealous lover.
Well, I loosened it. What do you mean by that?
I think you're overly interested in Belle Remington. And you're just a wee bit annoyed that she still has some consideration for her husband.
You're the second person to tell me that today, Joni, and I'm getting just a little tired of it.
Well, it's written all over you. She's pretty glamorous, you know. I'd even like her autograph.
Stop it, will you?
Who do you like better, her or me? I'll fight her tooth and nail for you. Look. Feel that muscle. What is it, Ken?
Joni, look. She wants to win that custody case, doesn't she? Then why didn't she tell us about her husband? Why?
Maybe she doesn't want to win the case at all.
What do you mean by that?
You have to figure it out. It's not necessary for a young girl to know what she means all the time.
Oh, Joni, sometimes you're so exasperating.
Well, maybe. But you show all of the symptoms of falling in love.
With her? You're out of your mind.
You can't even open a jar of pickles. Try testing your pulse the next time you're with her.
You know, sometimes, Joan, I'd like to give you a good whack right on the...
Not if you want dinner.
Why are you looking at me like that?
Because I don't understand you, Belle.
Really? Well, I don't think I like being called on at 11:30 at night so that you can try to understand me.
Belle, would you please tell me why you don't want to use what we have against your husband?
Can't all of this wait until tomorrow?
We go into court tomorrow. I have to know now.
You had no right to do what you did. I allowed you to come into my house, but I didn't expect you to meddle in my life, question my friends. I am not on exhibition. And when I am, people pay to see me, but there are footlights between them and me. And my husband isn't either.
Well, he will be tomorrow. And you will be, too, for free. Look, I didn't start this custody case. The two of you did.
I don't need you to remind me of that.
How do you expect to keep your child if you won't fight for him, Belle?
I can't do it your way.
Well, that's the only way. Belle, any father will be awarded his son for a few weeks, maybe a few months out of the year. All right, you have good reason not to want that, but you have to explain it in court or you'll lose. Look, the boy's told me again and again he wants to be with his father. He'll say that in court, and that's going to hurt your case.
But I can understand him saying that, even wanting it. He and his father do things that I'm not equipped to do. I mean, he talks about taking him fishing and...
Understanding doesn't help. You've got to let me do something about it.
Don't you see, Mike handles millions of dollars for very old, very respected families. He'd die if his personal problems were plastered all over the papers. He'd die.
Fine. Then let Johnny spend the summers with him, and Christmas and Easter and Thanksgiving and April Fool's Day. We can arrange that, Belle, easily. Do you trust Johnny with him? No, you don't. Because you don't know what he might do with him. You know he's sick.
I can't do it. I can't destroy him.
Belle, he's destroying himself. Don't you see? He couldn't do it with a razor blade. He couldn't do it with sleeping pills. So now he's doing it this way. You have to fight him.
I can't. I can't.
Why? Why can't you?
Johnny. Johnny loves him.
Oh. No, that isn't it. Is it?
Oh.
Do you love him?
You're so terribly young, aren't you? Well, they let me alone. It's none of their business.
Sorry, we should have been able to arrange it better than this.
Can I have your autograph, Belle? It's for my sister. Come on, sweetie. She's crazy about it.
Please tell her to go away.
Please, please. No autographs.
He must be insane to want to go through with this.
I suggested we move into judges' chambers, but so far I've gotten a flat no from your husband's lawyers. I don't understand that. He seems more out to punish you than anything else.
Or punish himself.
No, you've decided against that. So he's not hurting himself, and maybe he's not really hurting you. The only one you can be sure will be hurt will be your son.
Mrs. Schmidt, are you a trained psychologist and social worker?
Yes?
Were you appointed by the court to visit the Remington home?
Yes.
And did you make a number of visits?
Yes.
What were your findings?
Well, generally, I would say that Johnny is exposed to a rather extraordinary social life.
Well, could you elaborate on that remark?
Yes. From what I've seen and what I was able to gather, there is a great deal of unwholesome activity going on at Mrs. Remington's home.
Objection.
I'll sustain it. Mrs. Schmidt, the court will decide what is unwholesome and what isn't.
Could you describe this activity for us?
I'm talking about theatrical parties. The child seems to be something of a favorite in his mother's set. He's gotten out of bed at strange hours to say hello to someone, to meet someone, be given presents. Some of them rather remarkable.
For instance?
Box of cigars, given to him by an actor friend of his mother's. His mother didn't know he'd kept them, but he had. I'm afraid he's even smoked some of them on occasion. At these parties, he's exposed to drunkenness, to lewd language, to a display of, well,
loose moral attitudes.
Well, such as?
Necking, right in front of him. By people he didn't even know.
How would you describe Johnny generally?
Well, he's a nervous boy. Extremely sensitive, easily frightened. School terrifies him. He has no way of relating to other children at all. Has no friends. No one he can really talk to except perhaps his father.
Would you describe Johnny as being a lonely boy, Mrs. Schmidt?
Yes. He is a lonely boy. There's no question about that.
Thank you, Mrs. Schmidt. Your witness. Mrs. Schmidt, would you say that Johnny is an imaginative boy?
Too much so for his own good.
Have you ever attended any of the parties you described?
No.
Where do you get your knowledge of the drunkenness, the lewd language, and the display of loose moral attitudes?
From Johnny.
No further questions.
He said, I hate my mother.
When did he say that?
On a number of occasions. It's not that he hates his mother. It's just that he misses his father. He often says his mother keeps him away from his father.
Your witness. You've been in Mrs. Remington's employ as Johnny's nurse for how long?
5 months.
Then you've never lived in the house when Mr. Remington was there?
No.
And you don't know what conditions may have been like when Mr. Remington was in the house?
No.
Do you recall distinctly the occasions on which Johnny told you he hated his mother?
Yes.
Would you take the most recent occasion and describe it to us, please?
It was 3 nights ago. He wanted to watch a television program. I forget the name of it, but it has gangsters and shooting. It's very violent. Mrs. Remington had left orders not to allow him to see it. That's when he said he hated her.
What time is that program on?
10:30 to 11.
I see. Have you worked for other families with children?
Yes.
And have you ever heard other children say they hated their mothers?
Yes. But it was usually after they had been spanked or punished in some way.
Or deprived of something they wanted?
Yes.
No further questions.
How about a hot dog?
Make that 2. Lots of mustard, please. I adore American restaurants.
What are you doing here?
I thought I'd come down and watch you work.
Haven't you got classes?
Cut 'em. Aren't you pleased?
Sure, I'm pleased. Only we're going to be in judges' chambers this afternoon.
Oh. Well, you could take me home afterwards. If the man who invented mustard were here right now, I'd kiss him right on the mouth.
Come on. Let the boy alone. I said let him alone.
Johnny, baby, are you all right?
What do they want?
Oh, nothing, darling. Don't think about it.
They're taking our pictures.
It was very nice of you.
How come?
Oh, I guess it's because Mommy's an actress, darling. Thank you very much.
Johnny and I are old friends.
I love her. She smells like mustard.
Darling, don't you ever run away from me like that again.
Hey, Johnny, let's see you.
Oh, no, Johnny, no.
I want to go with her.
Johnny, I think you should go with your mother. She wants you to. She loves you very much, Johnny.
Okay.
Were you really going to fight off all those reporters? I wish somebody would do that for me.
Well, nobody will as long as you smell like mustard.
She dyes her hair.
You know that you're supposed to tell the truth, don't you?
Yes.
Well, that's fine. Now, Johnny, do you love your mother?
Sometimes.
Not all the time?
No.
Well, when is it that you don't love her?
When I get mad at her.
Does that happen a lot?
Yes.
Why do you get mad?
A lot of times I wake up at night and she's not there, so I get scared.
And that makes you mad?
Yes. I don't see her so much. She's always in a beauty parlor or sleeping or something like that.
Now, Johnny, tell the judge if you love your father.
Yes.
All the time?
Sure.
Would you like to spend more time with him than you do now?
And how?
Johnny, would you like to live with your father all the time?
No, Your Honor. I would like to protest Mr. Swan's form of questioning. This is a 9-year-old boy we're dealing with, not an adult. Mr. Swan is leading him and phrasing his questions, so it's impossible for the child to be objective.
Mr. Preston, the principals in this kind of case are not objective, nor could you expect them to be. It's the duty of the court to make the final decision, not the child. I trust that you have at least some confidence in my ability to be objective.
I do indeed, Your Honor.
Thank you. Johnny, you don't mind if I ask you a few questions, do you?
No, sir.
Suppose you had to decide which of your two parents you were going to live with. Who would you pick, your mother or your father?
My father.
No, Johnny, you can't say that. He doesn't mean that. I know he doesn't.
Johnny, why do you say you'd like to live with your father?
Because I have more fun with him. He's going to take me hunting with a real gun and fishing. And once we went to Coney Island. But my mother wouldn't take me because she said it was dirty. But it wasn't. It was beautiful. She doesn't want me to have any fun.
That's not true.
She's always yelling and punishing. She spanks me.
Johnny, don't. Please don't. Darling, you mustn't say such things. You mustn't.
They said I had to tell the truth, so I am.
Don't you see? Those are just little things.
Mrs. Remington.
No, they're not important. Coney Island isn't important.
It is important.
Mrs. Remington, I realize that this is a difficult experience for you, but I must ask you to keep silent until you are called on to speak.
I'm sorry.
I would not like to subject this child to any further questioning now, unless Mr. Preston insists.
No, I agree with you, Your Honor.
We'll recess for 10 minutes and then move back into open court.
But it's his father. Can't you understand that?
Of course I can, Mrs. Remington. I'd like to question your husband in judge's chambers to spare him, but he's a very difficult and arrogant man. He wants a public trial because he's obviously convinced you won't destroy him in court, whereas in judge's chambers you very well might. He's blackmailing you emotionally by keeping the trial in open court.
What do you want of me?
That's not exactly the question, is it? What do you want of us?
I don't know.
You may have to let him have Johnny for half the year. Let me tell you something, Mrs. Remington. You're being a little bit less than honest with yourself.
What do you mean?
He means you have to choose between your son and your husband, and you have to do it now.
So far, this case has only served one purpose, to publicize and sell tickets for your play.
How dare you?
You can't expect a judge to have supernatural insight. He can't see what we don't tell him. Either we take your husband apart on the stand, and no matter how that may damage him professionally and personally, or you make some sort of compromise with him.
I don't know what to say. All this maneuvering is like a fantastic game.
It's not a game. Your child is at stake.
I was told you were very good lawyers. But I wasn't told how very cruel a good lawyer has to be sometimes. All right. In your own delicate words, take him apart.
No, I don't think his mother spends enough time with him. She hasn't got enough time.
What kind of an education is your son getting?
He goes to a school which I've selected for him. In other matters, I find him too well educated.
Objection.
It's overruled. What do you mean by too well educated?
He seems too well aware of the kind of life his mother leads.
I object, Your Honor. It's not been established that Mrs. Remington's conduct needs in any way to be hidden from her son. These aren't facts we're getting from the witness, but the witness' own conclusions.
I think that's true, Mr. Remington. You will have to be more specific.
All right. I spoke to my son about a certain actor that he'd seen his mother with. My son said to me not to worry. She had told him that it would take her a long time to find anyone good enough to replace his father.
I object, Your Honor. When this is taking what would seem to be a perfectly innocent conversation and twisting it, trying to make it seem to be something else.
I submit that under any interpretation, the conversation would be indicative and revelatory.
My son is 9 years old.
The court is well aware of the age of the boy. The objection is overruled. Continue, Mr. Swan.
Mr. Remington, would you tell us what happened the morning of March the 4th of this year at your wife's apartment?
Yes, I went there unannounced and found Johnny very upset. There was an actor there having breakfast with my wife.
And where did this breakfast take place?
In my wife's bedroom.
And where was Mrs. Remington?
In bed.
Thank you. Your witness.
Your Honor, Mr. Preston's been detained at a hearing. I request permission to begin cross-examination.
Well, I have no objection, Your Honor.
Proceed, Counselor.
I'm astonished that you've broken off so soon, Mr. Swan. I should have thought the court was waiting with bated breath to hear where the actor in question was having his breakfast. Was he also in bed?
No.
Where was he?
Sitting in a chair.
Was he fully dressed?
Yes.
What was your wife wearing?
A robe.
Now, Mr. Remington, is it true that Johnny was really upset by this, or was it you who was upset?
Objection.
I withdraw the remark. Mr. Remington, do you consider it unusual to have a friend or fellow craftsman in for breakfast?
Not if it were only for breakfast.
Well, have you any reason to believe it was more than that?
She's been seen with him many times.
Oh, this particular nameless actor.
Yes.
Mr. Remington, isn't it true that you're more interested in your wife's behavior than in the welfare of your son?
Objection, Your Honor.
I withdraw the remark.
He's right. Mike doesn't want Johnny. He wants me.
Now, Mr. Remington, you heard your son say that he would prefer to live with you.
Yes.
Do you remember the reason he gave?
You bet I do. He said it was because he had fun with me.
Well, did he give any other reason?
No.
Well, does he have fun with you all the time?
There's no way to judge a thing like that.
Well, I'll put it another way. Have there been any moments with you during which Johnny was frightened?
He still doesn't believe I do it. He doesn't believe it.
I'll repeat the question. Have you ever frightened your son?
I don't know what you mean.
Has the boy ever known you to be sick?
Please don't hurt him, please.
Mr. Remington, has Johnny ever known you to be sick?
I suppose he must have.
On the morning of January 9th of this year, were you involved in any particular incident relating to what might be called an illness to which Johnny was a witness?
I don't know. Perhaps. I don't know.
He's my husband. He's always been my husband. He'll always be my husband. Please help us. Help us, I beg of you.
I'll put it another way. Was Johnny ever a witness to your deliberately injuring yourself?
If it please the court, I would like a moment to confer with counsel.
All right, Mr. Preston.
What's the matter, Dad? Am I doing something wrong?
No, not you, Ken. I guess we both were. I think I finally know what Mrs. Remington really wants of us. Let me take this. If it please the court, I request permission to take over cross-examination.
Any objection, Mr. Swan?
None, Your Honor.
Very well, go ahead.
Mr. Remington, you'll forgive me if I ask you certain questions that have not been touched upon thus far. Questions which may seem a bit irregular, but are certainly relevant. What are your feelings towards your wife?
What do you mean?
Well, despite all you accuse her of, isn't it a fact you've made no move to obtain a divorce?
That's right.
Nor has Mrs. Remington tried to divorce you.
No, she hasn't.
Is it Johnny who's most important to you, or is it your wife?
No, that's all right. Of course my son is important to me. My wife is important to me, too.
Would you say that you love her?
Of course I love her. I'll always love her.
Mike, I love you too.
Your Honor, I'd like to ask for a recess.
I think that's an excellent idea, Mr. Preston. We'll recess till tomorrow. Perhaps you two would like to talk it over alone in my chambers.
I can't say very much to you now, Bill.
I know.
I love you.
I love you, Mike. I always have. But I'm afraid.
Of me?
I don't know. Of both of us, I guess. Of what we do to each other. Of what we do to Johnny.
I know one thing, Bill. I learned it today. If I can't make it with you, I'm in trouble. I'd like to try.
Kiss me. Oh, Mike, we'll try. I don't know what will happen, but I want to try. Oh, I've missed you. I've missed you so much. It's been so long, I'm almost embarrassed.
Where's Johnny?
Johnny's with a girl.
Already?
He's very advanced for his age. Oh. It's going to take me a long time to think of the words to thank you both properly.
Try hard. We'll wait.
Thank you.
Johnny's outside. Thank you.
What was that?
Don't ask me. I'm not sure I know what happened.
I could have sworn they walked out of here together.
I'll admit it looked like that. Dad, how did you...
I'm a man of vast experience.
Would you mind having a chat with your son? 5 minutes ago, a 9-year-old boy proposed to me, and I almost took him up on it.
Look, I'll propose dinner to you. How's that?
Oh, no, wait a minute. Before I lend you my son, I'd like to make 2 points to him. First, you don't always try to win a case. That may not be the object at all. And second...
Allow me. You do not become infatuated with the clients.
Well, yes, that's more or less the idea.
All right, come on, both of you.
Well, anyway, I read in this morning's paper. She's pushing 30.